What's up? Welcome into Verts. My name is Harrison Graham, and we got some NFL rumors to dive into, including some Matthew Stafford to the Giants trade buzz. This has kind of been percolating for a couple of days now. They hired his brother-in-law. There's all kinds of interesting angles to this thing, plus a couple other storylines, including a team that could be looking to trade up in the NFL draft. So stay tuned. We got you guys covered on all things NFL here on today's episode. And if you want to support Verts, if you enjoy the content we bring you, maybe this is your first time watching, you want to help us grow, you love the NFL, hit that like button. And, hey, let's set a record for most likes on today's show, and let's keep it moving here. Okay, Colin Cowherd, Adam Schefter, both had some interesting things to say when it comes to this Stafford to the Giants story. Cowherd went on his radio show yesterday and said that he made some calls and that the Rams would like to get the number 3 pick from the New York Giants. They like Matthew Stafford, but they don't necessarily want to give him a bunch of new guaranteed money, so that they are open to trading him this offseason. And if the Giants want him, they would like to get the number 3 pick in return. Schefter, a few hours later, basically completely dismissed that and said the Giants will not trade the number 3 pick for Matthew Stafford under any circumstances. And look, it all makes sense, right? Let's talk about the Rams angle first. It's like, okay, we're open to trading Stafford. We're also open to keeping him. How desperate are you? Give us the 3rd pick. You give us the 3rd pick, we could either draft a new quarterback, we could trade down, which is something Cowherd said they'd consider. He actually threw in the angle that they would sign Aaron Rodgers to a 1 or 2 year deal, trade down from 3 for more draft picks, and just build the roster. And then from New York's standpoint, how desperate are they? Because Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, their head coach, general manager combination, they're entering year 4. And what did John Mara say at the end of the season after he decided to keep those 2 guys? My patience is running out. We need to start winning soon. And that tells me that the pressure is on. Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll, they know they've got to win, and they know they've got to win soon. And this is the worst place you can be in the NFL, is being desperate, especially for a quarterback, because when you make moves, when you make trades, when you make big splashes, overpays out of desperation, it leads to mistakes. And you can't operate an NFL team with desperation in mind, which is why it felt weird that Mara brought these guys back. It's almost like he brought them back because no one thought he was going to, because of the Hard Knocks thing. He's like, well, my GM looked like an idiot on that show. Everybody wants me to fire him. I'm not going to let that be the case. I'm going to give them another year. But then an hour after the press release that they're bringing those guys back, he talks to the media and he says, my patience is running out. We got to start winning soon. So it's like, well, the Giants don't have a quarterback. They know you have to have a quarterback to win games. Brian Daboll, Joe Schoen, they're not idiots. They're not stupid people. So that tells me that they're going to be very, very aggressive in trying to get a quarterback. And to me, that is the key balance. There is a big difference, in my opinion, between aggressiveness and desperation. Because being aggressive is, yeah, let's call the Rams. Let's try to get Matthew Stafford. We know he could be a good player for us. Desperate, yeah, we'll give you the 3rd pick. Just 3rd pick, aging Stafford, could only play 1 or 2 more years. Just take it. That's desperate. And you can't act out of desperation if you are Joe Schoen when you're trying to give Brian Daboll a quarterback. So to me, a reasonable trade here for both sides, frankly, if the Rams come to the conclusion of, yeah, we appreciate the run we've had with Matt, but we're going to move in a new direction, is 34th overall pick. Early 2nd round. Stafford at most is probably playing 2 or 3 more years at this point in his career. So if you're the Rams and you don't want to give him any more money, take the 34th pick and move on. And if that's not enough for you, well, you should probably just keep him next year then, because he's still a winning player. They were a play away from the NFC Championship, and he's still very good. So, if I'm the Giants, that's my offer. I'm offering the 34th pick, take it or leave it. There is no chance in hell you can trade the number 3 overall pick for a 37-year-old quarterback. That is bad business. I mean, you could argue that is beyond desperate. So we'll see where this goes. I do think the Giants are going to explore a lot of different avenues this offseason to get a quarterback. Obviously, they could just draft one. But there's a chance Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders could be the first 2 picks, which would leave them SOL potentially. Shit out of luck. sitting there at number 3. So what say you? What will the Giants QB move be? Will it be trading for Stafford, type T, or drafting a quarterback, type D? And if you have a specific quarterback you want them to draft, feel free to drop his name in the comments below. I still would lean they probably end up drafting one, but I do get the sense that the Rams are at least open-minded to trading Stafford, and the Staffords themselves seem open-minded to moving on. I mean, Stafford's wife has a podcast, and at the end of a long rant about them moving on from Cooper Kupp, it was like, she said, hey, I like an adventure. So maybe, just maybe, they are willing to go to another team at this stage in his career. Okay, let's keep the quarterback theme going, and let's keep the Big Apple theme going. The New York Jets. Nevin Shapiro, for those who don't know, former Miami booster, got in a bunch of trouble, Ponzi scheme, this whole thing. Anyway, he's back at the forefront. He's been hopping on podcasts. He had something to say several months ago. I can't even remember what it was now. That was a pretty juicy NFL rumor at the time. He has now said that the New York Jets are bundling together a package to try and trade up for Cam Ward. Now, I don't know if it's with the Titans or with another team, but what we do know is a couple of things. One, the Jets need a quarterback because they cut Aaron Rodgers, or they're going to. They just have to decide if it's going to be a pre- or post-June 1 cut. That'll determine the cap hits that they take on this year versus future years, etc. And number two, that they have a new regime that seems to have a direction of where they want to go. Now, we don't know exactly what that direction is going to be, but they pivoted off Aaron Rodgers basically is the first thing that Aaron Glenn and this new GM have done. Like, hey, we're going to move in a new direction. And I got to say that if they traded up for Cam Ward, that's a pretty big power play. That's a, hey, we are identifying this guy. We like him. We think he could be our franchise quarterback. Like, that's not messing around. Now, is it worth, trading a haul to move from 7-1 for Cam Ward? You could argue it is. You could argue it's not, because I don't think Cam Ward is viewed as, any of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks even in last year's QB class, but he's physically gifted. He has a strong arm. I like the mentality in which he carries himself with. There's a lot to like there when it comes to Cam Ward. And again, if you're the Jets, you couldn't really fault it, because that's having conviction in what you want to do. And remember this, and ESPN just wrote an article about it. Rappaport reported it on Super Bowl Sunday last week. The Titans are open to all avenues. They are open to trading the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. So it would not shock me at all if they shopped that pick and ended up trading down, and maybe they end up signing Aaron Rodgers, who has a house in Nashville. All these things, the quarterback carousel this offseason is going to be very fascinating to watch. And, moving on from Aaron Rodgers, that's kind of the first domino that the Jets have made here in this QB carousel offseason. And maybe, just maybe, they are looking to move up in the draft to try and find their guy for the long term. Okay, subscribe to us here at 4Verts, daily NFL videos throughout the entire offseason. It's 100% free. And guess what I'm going to do tomorrow? I just mentioned it. We already filmed it, a 2025 quarterback carousel video where I predict 10 teams that have question marks on who their starting quarterback is going to be. I predict who will be their gunslinger in week 1. So stay tuned for that. We'll have that video coming your way tomorrow. And if you just want other NFL videos, news, rumors, free agency, and draft content, we'll continue to plug away here on 4Verts. Okay, Travis Kelce, report out of Kansas City. Nate Taylor, who's covered the team for a long time for The Athletic. I can't remember who his podcast partner is, so forgive me for that. They basically were talking the other day that it's their understanding that the Chiefs are going to give Kelce about a month to make a decision. They don't want him to rush it, but they need to know around, or at least in the first week of NFL free agency, if it is in his plans to come back next year. At media night, the week of the Super Bowl, he was asked, where do you see yourself in 3 years? And he said, yeah, hopefully still playing. I got a lot left in the tank. And, it was the right answer to give, because you don't want to create a distraction like, hey, this could be my final rodeo just days before the Super Bowl. But then that report came out on Super Bowl Sunday from Ian Rappaport that Kelce's future is up in the air. This very well could be his last game, and the outcome could determine it. Now, them losing would make you think, maybe he'd want to strap up one more year and try to give it another go next year. But then you saw how he played, not only in the Super Bowl, but against the Bills. And I think the body's just betrayed him, man. I'm not saying he's got nothing left, but if he plays next year, I think the role will be even more diminished in what it was. I still think he can have an impact, but you get these all-time greats that hang around too long, and at the end, and you kind of wonder if they look back of like, why did I hang on for that last year or two when I was a shell of myself? I don't think he's completely trash or anything like that. I still think he's a serviceable player, and out of a 17-game schedule can give you 4 or 5 good games and 4 or 5 average games, but probably 5, 6, 7 games where he's not much of a factor. But for a guy who for a decade was an impactful guy, 12 to 15 games a year, that might be a tough pill to swallow if you're Travis Kelce. You may not want to do that and come back and be, I don't want to say a backup, but a diminished starter who can't really block anymore and all this stuff. And, you listen to him on the New Heights podcast the other day. He kind of sounded like a guy who was leaning toward retirement. That's kind of the sense I got when it came to Travis. Now, look, I think he'll take at least a couple weeks before making a decision. I'm sure he'll talk to Jason and say, hey, did you regret retiring? Do you wish you would have played another year? The Eagles won the Super Bowl this year. Does Travis, the competitor he is, does he want to go through the grind and try to get back and win another Super Bowl? I'm sure some of that fire is still in him. But on the flip side, when you play this deep into the playoffs year after year after year, remember, the Chiefs have played at least 2 additional games for 7 straight years, getting to the AFC Championship game. The years they had a bye and lost in the AFC Championship game, that would have just been 2 extra games. Some years, 4 extra games. For a tight end who's in the trenches and getting beat up, that's, after a while, that's almost an extra season worth. So this guy's played into February 3 straight years, 5 out of the last 6. It takes a toll on your body. And for tight ends, you get that age 36, only Tony Gonzalez has had a high-level season at that age or older. I think if Kelce came back next year, you're probably looking at like a 500-yard player. Now, there's still value in that. That'd probably be 10th, 12th in the NFL. But again, does he want that? Does he want to come back and be 60% of the player he once was? I'm not sure. I would guess he's going to retire, but I think he'll take a couple of weeks before he makes a decision. What say you? Do you think Travis Kelce will retire? Do you think he's done? Type Y for yes, type in for no. I do think he's going to walk away, but he deserves the right to have some time here to make that decision. But I also don't blame the Chiefs if they're like, hey, man, we'll give you a month, but if you're out, we need to, we're probably going to have to add a tight end. So please let us know. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of For Verts. Again, free NFL content here on a daily basis. We will have our QB Carousel video tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. My name is Harrison Graham. We'll see you soon.